well, have you really ever allowed yourself to be happy? How does that? Tell me what's going on.
Oh my God,
Let's unpack
there's
this.
a lot to unpack there because, I just think of so many things. I think of how we, like us, because we're go-getters like that, we operate on this like hamster wheel, right? Mm-hmm. And in this hamster wheel, where's the space for happiness in that? In that journey of the hamster wheel, where is the space for allowing us, or why does it, I don't know. I mean, I go to therapy too. And I know that, maybe growing up and maybe socially, maybe our society doesn't really create a lot of space. Because imagine what would happen if they taught us to be happy at school. What would happen if they don't teach you, like, hey,
No, they don't teach you that.
No. Like, what would happen if they taught you, hey, let's talk about happiness today, like in third, fourth, and like actually each grade, weekly at least, what would this world look like if we all just kind of pursued our happiness?
Well, I have to say, I got to give kudos to the Gen Z community.
Yeah, for sure.
The Gen Z community has really opened up
I love
space and conversations because it does directly impact your mental health and happiness. It's just, very connected. And so you mentioned that because I don't know why I thought for some reason, like, I love that you're talking about this on a grander scale because I don't know, for me, I first thought was like being queer. Mm-hmm. That's already like one shot down. Like, you're already like not allowed to be happy because even your natural thoughts are not being supported.
Right.
Because that's something I just like am starting to unpack is like that when I first started to even have my own feelings and thoughts as an 8-9-year-old, I immediately had to shut those down and not validate them, right? And so that has now kind of, there's a thin thread, a red thread through my life. I don't know if there's been anything in your life. I'm sure there has been some things in your life that have not allowed you to be happy. And like, how do you navigate that?
Right.
I don't know.
No, like, and maybe this is the same for you and for the viewers, which is there's this thought that my happiness should come from my achievements.
But
which
I mean,
I'll share my resume with y'all if you want.
He's
which
pretty,
I have a couple.
Very impressive, I have to say.
And so when I was building, the big chunk of my resume that looks pretty good, I don't know if I was necessarily like my happiest, but
let's take a moment there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying, like, just a formula. You're achieving all these things, but were you actually really happy? You're questioning that, right?
They're good. So.
Right.
The world is more complicated than that. There was certain happiness that did come from that, but in my overall multidimensional happiness, maybe that's a thing that I have to dissect with my therapist next time. Was I really happy at that time? And where does my true self come in all of this and that? But I do want to second what you say because I think we have an interesting positionality in this, right? As queer Latinx people, right? Mm-hmm. Like our culture in the U.S., our culture from our families, our culture within the queer community, our culture as Orange County people, our culture as millennials. All of that positionality right there, right? Like, yes, maybe Gen Z is having a different type of wokeness, which it's great. Like, you don't know what it was like for us. But when we think about that, where was the space for happiness? Because I just mentioned a lot of struggle, girl.
A lot.
Queer, Latinx, in Orange County, which is a great place. Don't get me wrong.
But
it was
being
just an interesting place to grow up in when you fall within this population, right?
Exactly.
And so, when we talk about that, do we hear happiness or do we hear struggle? Mm. And then sometimes, and then on top of that, and then we just had like this other conversation in class the other day where like, we were like, okay, well, what is identity? And, people.
Oh my goodness, that's a whole.
Yes. And so people gave their answers to identity, and then I just realized, do we identify more with our struggles than with our...
Dang.
Yeah. And some people identify more with like their successes, right? Which is great. But maybe, I don't know, a lot of people in my surroundings, we kind of identify more with our struggles. And why is that? Do we make more space for our struggle, for our obstacles?
I never think about it like that.
Like, maybe this is a call to action to make more space for our happiness. Happiness is a
Oh my
form of resistance,
God.
okay? Happiness is a form of resistance.
Oh
my
my
happiness is
God.
the way that I resist the world.
Wow.
And this could be a wonderful time to be alive in a wonderful world. Let's just put, do the work.
Oh my
for
God,
it a
make
little
more
bit.
space for happiness. Wow.
Because happiness is a form of resistance. And when we talk about, our identity as struggles, as Latinx people
Yeah.
in Orange County, millennials, this and that, that can certainly be our happiness, but our struggles. But what if we resisted those struggles with just unapologetic happiness? And
Woo!
yes, and let me tell you something, y'all. Being queer is a beautiful thing.
Yes,
Let
it
me
is.
just tell you. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So